Have you ever thought about what it would be like to find a message in a bottle? Not sent across an ocean, but across time. Well, today, that's kind of what we're doing. We're cracking open a message from way back in 1987. It's called the Brundtland Report, or Our Common Future. It was this massive global call to action, and its warnings about what it called a silent extinction are honestly more urgent now than ever. So let's dive in and see what this warning from the past really means for us right now.
So the report kicks off with this incredible image. It asks us to imagine looking at our planet from space. And when you do that, you see this small, fragile ball. You don't see borders or economies first. You see clouds, oceans, forests. It was a huge shift in thinking, seeing Earth not as this limitless resource, but as a single, delicate, interconnected system. And that idea, right, that we're all living on this one shared, fragile home, that's the key to understanding why losing even one tiny part of it can affect absolutely everything.
All right, so the first part of this message is called the silent alarm. Decades ago, this report was basically shouting from the rooftops, warning that humanity was kicking off a chain reaction of environmental crises on a scale we'd never seen before. And right at the heart of it all was the extinction of species. And the numbers they were looking at back in '87, they're just staggering. Get this. 11 million hectares of forest, especially those vital tropical rainforests, were vanishing every single year. To put that in perspective, the report said it was like wiping a country the size of India completely off the forest map every 30 years. Just gone.
And it wasn't just the forests. At the very same time, 6 million hectares of good, farmable land was turning into desert every year. And look, this isn't some separate problem. It's all connected, part of the exact same downward spiral of environmental breakdown. So what does all this destruction of habitats lead to? A biological catastrophe. The report was blunt. Human activity was driving a mass extinction event, wiping out species at a rate that was several hundred or maybe even thousands of times faster than what would happen naturally.
So the next section is called a threatened genetic treasure. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but why should I really care about losing a few thousand species of bugs in a rainforest somewhere? The report's answer was incredibly practical. It argued we weren't just losing species, we were basically burning the books in a priceless genetic library before we even had a chance to read them.
Let's just talk money for a second. Even back in the 1980s, the value of medicines that came directly from wild plants and animals was pegged at over $40 billion a year. Think about that. A huge chunk of our modern medicine, from painkillers to life-saving cancer drugs, it all starts out there, in the wild.
Here's a perfect real-world example. In 1970, a fungus was absolutely devastating the U.S. corn crop, a multi-billion-dollar disaster. The entire industry was saved because someone found a wild relative of corn down in Mexico that just happened to be resistant to the fungus. And the craziest part? That genetic treasure, the thing that saved an entire industry, was found on a tiny plot of land, smaller than a city park, and it was on the verge of being destroyed forever. The report used this brilliant metaphor from a Professor Tom Eisner to really nail the point. With the rise of genetic engineering, the value of every single species just multiplies. You see, we're not just losing one book from the library when a species goes extinct. No, we're losing an entire filing cabinet full of genetic solutions. Solutions to problems in medicine, in farming, in industry that we don't even know we have yet. Okay, so if the problem was so obvious, what was driving it? What was the root of the destruction? The report's answer was pretty surprising. It wasn't just about greed or people being careless. It was a deep, fundamental flaw in how we structured our societies, a flaw in the relationship between our economy and our environment.
For most of history, we used what you could call a reactive model. Think of it like this. You had the departments of agriculture, industry, and energy making the mess, and then you had this little environmental agency that was supposed to come in afterwards and try to clean it all up. They were always treating the symptoms, like pollution or deforestation, after the damage was already done. And the report was crystal clear. This model was totally broken. It was doomed to fail. Seriously? What's the point of creating a beautiful national park to save a forest if your national economic policy is basically encouraging clear-cutting right up to the park's border? You're just treating a symptom while the disease runs wild.
So what was the solution? The fourth section, Anticipate to Better Protect, lays out this revolutionary idea. It called for a complete strategic shift. Stop reacting to damage and start proactively designing a system that prevents it from happening in the first place.
This slide really breaks it down.
The new strategy just flips the whole thing on its head. So instead of reacting to effects, you anticipate the causes. Instead of protecting these little isolated islands of nature, you integrate environmental thinking into all development. The environment stops being this annoying constraint on the economy and becomes what it always was, the foundational resource that makes the economy even possible.
So what does this actually look like in the real world? It means that when the people in charge of the economy, agriculture, and energy sit down to make policy, the ecological impact is on the table from the very beginning. It's not some inconvenient afterthought, but a core factor in every single decision. It's about getting to the source of the problem, not just cleaning up the mess.
At the end of the day, the report's message really boils down to responsibility. It frames the whole thing in this section, Our Future in Our Hands. It makes it clear that this isn't just a technical or economic problem, it's a deeply ethical one, centered on our relationship with all the people who aren't even here yet.
There's a line in the report that just hits you right in the gut. It says, "We borrow ecological capital from future generations with no intention or prospect of repaying. They cannot challenge our decisions. We are spending assets, clean air, fresh water, a diversity of species that don't belong to us. They belong to our children and grandchildren. And they have no voice in this, yet they're the ones who are going to have to pay the bill."
So that message in the bottle was opened decades ago. The silent alarm was sounded. The blueprint for a different path was laid out. And that leaves us with one really big and maybe kind of uncomfortable question. Have we actually listened?